Hey, what's up, guys? It's Craig Syracusa, Walk in Faith. I'm excited to be sitting down with Robert Borelli. Robert, thank you so much. I know your new book comes out or just came out, The Witness, A Tale of the Life and Death of a Mafia Madman. Robert, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your show. I do appreciate it.
Well, it's funny, and I have to admit, and I said it to you, Jackie, we both know Jackie very well, Truth PR, I love her. She sent this to me. I didn't read the book, which is the first time in probably 1,000 interviews where I didn't read the book. But when I saw the context of the book and the story, I said, first of all, Robert lived pretty close to where I lived, grew up in a very similar sort of situation. I said, I need to meet this guy. I need to find out his story. So, Robert, thank you. If you could just tell us briefly a little bit about the book and what inspired you to write the book.
Well, first, what inspired me to write the book, people told me I needed to write a book. Me, growing up the way I grew up, I didn't even know how to write my name, never mind a book. So I had to get somebody to help me with that, and God brought somebody in my life that was willing to do it. So the writer of the book is H. Scott Hunt, and he did everything. He edited, he did everything with the book. It's self-published by him and everything. It's Back to Acts Ministries, a ministry that it's underneath. That is where the copyrights go to. So the reason why I was thinking about writing the book, and when people said that's a great story, you need to write it to reach people who probably aren't going to go into your church to get saved, but they can hear your story, and if they read the book and they can see how God had transformed your life, you might be bringing hope into people that felt hopeless the way you felt hopeless. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is that because I was in the witness protection program, I was placed in with the protection program, people back home only know me who I was, don't know me who I am today. And people here only know me for who I am today, not who I was. So it's really a way of just bringing the story together that both people could see how God could really transform and change your life. Because, the saying goes, if God could change me, he could change anybody. If God could save me, he could save anyone. And that's the message we want to give. So we thought the book would be a way of giving a message of hope for those who might be in a similar situation. And with my story, it's a lot of different situations that I was in. So I went from the mob and got caught up with the drug things, became a crackhead, got locked up again for the last time in 1997, and how God just entered my life. Not that, people say, how did you find God? And I say, well, I never found God. I was never looking for God, And there's three things that I've learned that throughout the course of God renewing my mind, reading his word, is God seeks us, he saves us, and then he sends us. So he seeked me, he got me, he saved me, and now he's sending me. And this is what I do now, as I speak about how great and magnificent my Lord and Savior is, and I had to make it a personal thing. So
I love it. I always think of it too. I think of it as a tag in a sense where God chases after you, he tags you, and then you have to chase after him again. It's not like, and for my life too, I felt like when God really spoke to me, it was like, okay, Craig, and now it's my turn to sort of chase after him in the sense of learning everything I could and building a relationship with Christ. Can you tell us a little bit about the way you grew up in Brooklyn? Or was the 70s, was it, or the 60s?
Well, actually, I go back to the 50s.
50s, oh, I'm sorry.
54 when I was born, but I didn't understand a lot of that. But I guess you could say in the 60s when I started hanging around with these guys that like you said, Gambino Crime Family neighborhood, ran by the Gambino Crime Family. Didn't know that at that time. I was still a young kid. But in my neighborhood, you had to learn how to fight. It's either you had to learn how to fight or run real quick. And then there's times when you had to do both. And it was segregated in the sense that Italians really stood with the Italians. So we didn't use words prejudice. I didn't remember any of those kind of things. It was kind of like it was taught to you in an early age. You stood with your own kind. You married your own kind and things of that nature. So we were segregated in that area. Different areas of my neighborhood was Black, Hispanic, Jewish people and all that there. But they kind of had their own little neighborhood. So when you went from your neighborhood into somebody else's neighborhood, you could probably expect a fight because now you're on somebody else's turf. And I don't know if you ever seen the movie Warriors. I think it was about 80. But that's kind of that's Brooklyn. That's the Brooklyn that I grew up in, That's the Brooklyn I grew up. And that's just how it was. Now, of course, they exaggerated a lot about it. But the reality is that when you went into another neighborhood, chances were, so you had to fight. And that's just how it was. So I was a tough little kid. I was a small guy. And a lot of the boys in my neighborhood were a little bit older than me. There weren't too many my age. So I would get picked on a lot. And then in order for me not to get picked on, I had to learn how to fight back or do whatever I needed to do to make sure they won't bother me anymore. And that would be to extremes back in them days, picking up a stick, a bottle, a garbage pail cover, whatever it was, and hitting people with it because I didn't want to be picked on. I didn't want to be taken advantage of. And that's just how it goes. So the guys in the neighborhood seen that. We had the social clubs. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
They hung out in the social clubs. And I look at it like this here, 3 types of people in my neighborhood. My mom and dad, the family I grew up with, we were, I won't say dirt poor, but we were less fortunate, let's put it that way. So the struggles that my mom and dad had, the arguments that might have been in my home, were basically more financial than anything else. So at an early age, that's not like, I don't want to say, I want to be like my dad because we had the struggles. I didn't want that. Then back in the 60s, you had the people coming back from the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and they were coming back a little messed up, either with drugs, drinking a lot, and I didn't want to be like them. Then you had these guys from the social clubs where they hang out in the outside the social club, and this looked like they had very successful people, and they got a lot of respect from everybody in the neighborhood. The priests,
Mm-hmm.
the families that were around the neighborhood, the police officers who would walk the beat in them days, but they walked beats in them days, not like it is today. They got a lot of respect, so I gravitated to it. I thought that was my way to success. So I started hanging with them, and they would send me on little errands and do a couple of things for them. And I worked card games, like you've seen in some of the movies, because they never wanted, when they had a card game, they never wanted the players to get up from the table to either get food or a drink, because they wanted the game. That's how they made their money. They wanted to make sure the game kept going. So I would deliver sandwiches or a drink if they wanted something like that, and then I would get tipped. And that's how I really started getting involved with them. And I started getting respect from them. And hey, I liked it. I liked the attention.
Everybody's giving them respect. It's really hard to realize or rationalize that there's anything wrong with it, because everyone's doing it, and it's just like a career in the sense of moving up. So if I meet this person, if I do this task, if I stay quiet, whatever, I gain the respect, but then I move up the ladder and the level to the person I'm trying to become closer to. And I think it's hard for people to understand that if you don't grow up in that lifestyle, in that neighborhood. And yes, it has changed dramatically. I moved from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn 3 years ago. It's very different from what it was when I was growing up. But so now, how old were you when some of the main guys, whether it's a captain or somebody within the mafia, really took notice and started to give you opportunities for you to move even further up along in the ranks?
Well, what happened, I'd say I started hanging out in Queens, and one of the wise guys from the neighborhood, and in them days there was very few of them that were made men, not like it is today, everybody's getting straightened out. But one of them, their son, I was hanging out with his son, and this guy, his name was Andy. We used to call him Fat Andy, but not to his face. He would have these spreads every Friday night where all the people would come and give him honor, and his son would bring me with him to these affairs. And you would see these guys with big money, big earnings, dressed really nice. You knew who some of them were, not all of them, but I knew who some of them were. And here I am, a 17-year-old kid sitting down with these type of people, and it just blew my mind. But what really blew my mind was all the respect that Andy was getting from all these guys. And okay, that's where I want to be someday, Now, I didn't know at that time, because I had a German last name, that I couldn't get there. I would have been more like, I guess if you've seen the movie Goodfellas, I would be more like the Jimmy Burke type of guy that could never get straightened out, but could get honor and respect, but never really straightened out. So that's what I strive for. But with Anthony, this Fat Andy's son, I would hang out with him and we get into fights, and his father seen. And this one time a fight happened and somebody got killed, and me and some other guy was wanted for the murder, and his father hid me out. And I think that was kind of like, in a sense, my claim to fame in getting involved with the Gambino Crime Family, because now he would bring me and have other people from other crews and stuff hide me and my friend out. So everybody started knowing who I was.
And like you said, so for people that don't understand the ranks, let's say, so being made is like the highest honor in the mafia is to be made. And it's funny. And one of the reasons why I was so gravitated to the story is, you know, I'm not self-promoting, but a film I did about Bensoners, about the mafia, about things that I experienced, things I knew about and witnessed, I put together in a film called Omerta, The Act of Silence, and it's being released this week. And then when I saw how similar the story is, and the story in the end is all about forgiveness, redemption, you know, God's mercy. But within the film, we show what the ceremony is like to be made, to become a man of honor. And it's like one of the highest ranks that you could receive, that all of the work that you put in is now sort of you're being honored for it. And the funny thing is, it's not like in a job or in a corporation where if I work hard, I get a raise and my boss recognizes me, I get a new title. This is talking about crimes, whether it's murder, drugs, whatever it is, all of the crimes which elevate you in this organization. So now you, at some point, you know, I saw some interviews. Now you went to jail, or was it before you went to jail? Did you get hooked on drugs? Was that in jail? Was that before jail? What was the time period for the addiction to crack cocaine?
Well, first, I've been in and out of jails and prisons a lot. From 19, I mean, I could go back getting locked up even when I was a kid, you know, and then they didn't arrest you. They just brought you into the precinct and your mom and dad had to come and get you. So that was kind of like people would understand or recognize me as a pretty tough kid and didn't give nobody up. I got locked up and then came right back out. So that's kind of just building a reputation for yourself. I didn't understand at that time. I was just being who I thought I was supposed to be, you know, living according to the street rules, basically. But to answer what you're asking me is I'm trying to think how the right way to say this here. I got hidden out by a lot of people hiding me and stuff like that. Growing up the way I did and doing the things I did, I was in jail from 82 to 84, got out, locked up again. That was kind of like, I guess you would say, the trade that I picked up, because you knew that eventually you're going to get locked up. And my thought process was, is the crime going to be worth the time? That was how I always look at it. So whatever I was doing, how much profit was going to be in it, that if I got caught, would it be worth it? That's how I used to look at things. So I've been in and out of prison, but what happened is that I was being paraded around. I got locked up for 2 murders and possession of a weapon at the age of 20 years old in 1975. After Andy hid me out, I came back into the neighborhood. Finally, they found out where I was, and I got locked up for those crimes that I had committed previously. So going through that, I'm losing a little bit of my train of thought. You have to forgive me for that.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, listen, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it, especially for people who don't know that type of lifestyle. But what happened was that the last time I was being paraded around, and then I started hanging out on Mulberry Street, and that was kind of like the walking I guess the fame kind of thing for the mob, because all the big guys were on Mulberry Street, you know, O'Neill Delagrosse, Charlie West, all these guys that will have really big names, great reputation. I started working dice games with them, and then Coke came around at that time. And I remember this one guy that started, lost about $10,000 in about 5-10 minutes, and it didn't faze him in the least. And I've been around a lot of guys that lost a lot of money, but I already seen how angry they get when they're losing the money, you know. But this guy was pretty calm, and he said, "Can I send Robert out to get something out of my car?" And he told me, "Just go in my car in the back seat. There's a bag there. I want you to bring it to me." It was a bag full of money, a brand new Jaguar. And I was curious, what does this guy do? You know, after he left the game, what does he do that he could lose that kind of money or have a bag full of money in his back seat with a brand new Jaguar? And they said he was one of the biggest coke dealers, drug dealers in Harlem. And that got me involved with, okay, that's my next, I want to kind of live like that. I would make that kind of money. And that's when the drugs came in. So the last time I got locked up, to answer your question, was 1997. And I used my story, as I say, I got locked up I got a visit by 2 angels. They weren't Halo guys. They were warrant officers. I was wanted for a crime by the FBI in Florida and also a state crime because I started selling drugs, then I started using drugs, and then, long story short, the drugs started using me. So that's kind of when I was strung out on crack cocaine was the cheapest side. So I was losing everything. My reputation, everything was falling apart in my life. And I passed out on a drug, a crack den that I was in, and these angels came, which I call my angels. And they call my angels because that was the last time I had a drink and a drug.
Wow.
And from there, I was brought into Rikers Island, knowing I'm not going to get any bail. So that's kind of the process of how God started working in my life. You know, C.S. Lewis says it this way, and I love the way he says it. He says, God whispers to us in our pleasures, he speaks to us in our conscience, and he shouts to us to our pains as a megaphone for a deaf and dying world. And he's been trying to get my attention probably for the longest time, and I was just ignoring him. Now you got to remember, I was raised Roman Catholic, so I knew about God, but I never really knew God.
Oh, exactly.
It's a big difference, you know.
I say that all the time. I'm Roman Catholic, and Sunday is not enough. And growing up, we went to church, still go to church, but I didn't really have a relationship. I didn't really understand who Christ was. You know, I checked the box, I went to church, and did everything, sacraments, but I didn't really understand who Christ was. And it's interesting too, like your story and the way you put it together. And I really appreciate you just walking us through this whole process. So now when you went to jail and the two angels who, weren't real angels, they came to you. Now you went to Rikers Island. Now what happened? What was the next step? I'm very curious how you had this transformation, how you went from the old to the new.
Okay. Well, my experience of being in prison, there's two things that are very important to me, living in a prison life. First thing is we need to get a good attorney to get me out of the mess that I got myself into. I mean, that's the first thought. So since I was bad with the drugs, I didn't have any money. So I needed to call up a lot of people who I felt maybe owed me favors or things that I did for them that they might help me. And the second thing, I need to get money in my commissary. That's the store in the prisons. So this way I can live as comfortable as I possibly can while I'm incarcerated. So those are two priorities for me. So I started making phone calls to people and trying to get money. And now my daughter was born in 1993, and I just came out of a rehab, cleaned up, wanted to be there for her birth. 7 weeks after she was born, me and her mother has an argument. I'm going back a little bit, but just to clear it up, to understand it a little bit better. So I have an argument with her mother. I go out and I think I'm going to get high just for the night, just to blow off, whatever it was that I was feeling in myself. I guess self-medicate and then go back home, but that never happened. You know the old saying, one is too many, 1,000 is never enough. Well, that's a true statement, because that one was not, it was too many, and 1,000 was never enough. I stood out in the streets, so I didn't see my daughter. At that point in time, the mom didn't want me around my daughter. So now my daughter's mom is allowing me to call my daughter because she knows I'm incarcerated. So I'm calling her up, and she puts my daughter on the phone, and me and my daughter are having a conversation. So I call up these people to try to get commissary money and get money for an attorney, and everybody's blowing me off. And this one girl said, why don't you go read the Bible? And I'm taking it as another brush up. Where am I going to find a lawyer, or where am I going to find commissary money in the Bible? So I figured it's, her way of saying, leave me alone, don't bother, go read the Bible. And at the same time, maybe a couple of weeks after that, I'm talking to my daughter. She gets on the phone and she's crying. I said, Brianna, why are you crying? She said, because you won't come and see me. And now I can't medicate, so it crushed my heart, because I knew that there were so many times that I was around my daughters in the neighborhood, and I'd rather get high than even make an attempt. Doesn't make a difference if the mother would have let me see her or not see her, but I never made an attempt to even try to go see my daughter. So it brought me to a place of desperation. And when my daughter said that, my heart just shattered. And I was crying, and I didn't want the inmates to see me, so I slammed the phone down, ran back to my cell, and basically I gave God an ultimatum. And I said, God, if you're real, either have somebody kill me or change me, because I can't live like that. I can't live with this pain. I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm thinking death was the easiest way out for me at that point in time. But obviously God thought it was the latter one better for me. So
Mm.
I really believe at that point in time, God honored not so much of what I was saying, but the sincerity of what I was saying from the heart, that I needed him to come and change my life. And only he could have done it. I tried it so many times on my own for so many other reasons, and it never worked out for me. And I believe at that point in time, it's that born again experience where God came in and started living through me. And from that point in time, I never looked back.
Wow. And how old are you at the point? How many years ago was this?
This was in 1997, so we're talking 24 years ago.
And since then, you've been on fire for Christ.
I've been, when I think about, what I had to do is, because you can read in the Bible, God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Whoever believes him shall not perish but have eternal life. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's great. That's a great. But for me, it was like, okay, that happened 2,000 years ago. It's not until I had to make that personal. God so loved Robert Engel that he gave his life for. When I made it personal, I understood how much God loved me personally. It's kind of like if you hit the lottery, I could be excited for you. If I hit the lottery, I'll be a lot more excited than
Of course.
So when I personalized it, it meant so much more to me. It meant that God loved me so much that he was willing to go on the cross and die for me, even when I was still his enemy. Now in my lifestyle, we sometimes have to put ourselves on the line for our reputation and maybe put ourselves out there that we might get killed for a friend of ours or associate of ours, but never for an enemy. But yet God, while I was his enemy, went to the cross on my behalf. And the Bible says those who are forgiven much will love much. And it's just I fell in love with Jesus, and I had to get to know him more.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't chasing after him because I already had him, but I needed to know him more because I knew that once my relationship with him got right, all the other relationships would start falling into place.
It's amazing. You're right. I mean, I know from personal experience as well. When I started to build a relationship with Christ, it's something that, first of all, I want to share with everyone. I want people to, just like you, to know that, God saved me. He could save you. Like there's nothing unique and special about me. We're all the same. But God, for some reason, chased after me, never gave up on me. And I look back at all the times that God was there. God was there. He never gave up. And I want people to know every day how God has impacted and changed my life, and he can do that as well. It's like what the world offers us is to separate us from Christ. So it offers us all of these, whether it's materialistic power, fame, money, right, just to separate us from Christ. And then when we realize that none of that is important, that it's all about a relationship with Christ, you start to see life completely different. And then you want to share it with the world. But what I learned too is when I came to Christ that I assumed that everyone would accept me, that life would be easy. And the misconception of that is what I think pushes people away to say, well, God, I made a deal with you. I have an agreement with you. I came to Christ. I gave my life to you. Why is life so difficult? So when you gave your life to Christ, did everything just open up? Was the doors open, the opportunities? What was it like? Because this is where I think people walk away from it. The challenge, the adversity, the storm. Was life easy for you? I know it wasn't for me.
No, that I thought it would be, because you got to remember, I have two things now. I'm cooperating with the government, so that can help me out a lot in my incarceration. I thought I'd find favor with them, and I have Christ in my life, so I thought everything was going to change automatically. But no, I went through a lot. But you want to know something? Through everything that I went through, I see God, the Spirit of God, and that's kind of like the next book I would like to write, is just how the Spirit moves us in ways that we can't even see until we get there. But how the Spirit of God was just moving and directing me, because once I did that, I figured, okay, my life's going to be easy now. The government's with me. I have Christ in me. People will accept me, and it didn't happen that way. So when I went from Rikers Island and the government took hold of me, I was locked up in Miami-Dade County Jail 24 hours a day. I only got out 1 hour, so it's a 23-hour lockup. So you would think I would have more freedom, but I had less freedom. So, and then after getting through some of that there, then they moved me. And once you move from one place to another, when you're incarcerated, it's uncomfortable because now you have to, you know, even though I was locked up a lot, but you have to, now you're going to go into a dorm and meet new people and stuff like that. And then my situation, always looking over my back at that point in time. But when they moved me there was 2 Bible studies. So I could see how God was just moving me places I probably wouldn't have looked for or said, hey, I want to go here or I want to go there. But how the Spirit of God was just moving me. So my life was up. Then even in there, the feds came. They said, somebody knows where you are. I have to put you in 23-hour lockup again. And that happened again. So, but you know, through all that experience and all the hardship, I seen God moving in ways that I would never have done it on my own, so to speak. But I had so much more time with him. I was 23-hour lockup, the hours of lockup, I just was reading the Word of God. So I was getting to know him more and getting, you know, it's one thing that we need to get into the Bible, but I think the most important thing is we get the Bible into us. Because what goes in us is what's going to come out of us, right? So that's the key thing. So I was getting more of him, reading more of him, getting more into the Word, but the Word was getting more into me. But I think the key thing for guys like us is the renewing of the mind, because we have an old.
Oh, I love that. Is my favorite passage.
Yeah.
So now let's just say, so there are people out there, whether the let's say criminals, people in jail, whatever, it doesn't matter. First of all, they're going to say, well, why you? And God will never understand what I've been through. Like, how do you? And the one thing too is which is a little bit, just want to clarify, is like, because of the way you lived, the people that, you know, God wants you to attract is maybe not the people that are on the pews or going to church every day, right? Your unique story is relatable to, say, a certain, you know, certain type of people, which is what makes you unique in your story. So let's say you're in a prison or you're talking to someone that's committed a crime, you know, and saying, well, why you? This is not relatable, or God will never forgive me. You know, I've been through it all. And it is hard to explain to someone that's never had a loving father that God loves you. You know, and if I didn't have a father, I'd say, how could somebody in heaven love me? You know, my father was never there for me. No one ever showed me love and affection. How do you communicate to those people that don't want to hear it? What do you say to them?
Well, you know, this is what I try to tell people who are saved that want to minister to somebody, because sometimes that can be discouraging. You know, you minister to somebody, they really don't want to hear it. And I kind of explain it, we're like mailmen. You know, a mailman goes to the post office, gets a route, they drop off the mail, and whatever their route is, they complete that route, their job is done. They don't go back to see if the people picked up the mail, they paid their bills, nothing like that. And I believe we're messages of Jesus Christ, right? We deliver God's mail. What people are going to do it is really up to them. Our job is just to deliver the mail. And that's what I kind of do. So for people, if you see, one of the other things, I do have a heart for the people who are in the pew. And I'm going to tell you something that really broke my heart, is that there's certain people that are doing church, but aren't in church. They're just doing something. They're doing something that they think they're going to win favor with God, or it's the right thing to do. Very religious kind of spirit that they have. And then I read in Matthew, and I forget exactly what it is. I think it's in chapter 5, where it says, get away from me, I never knew you. Didn't I do this? Didn't I do that? And he says, get away from me, I never knew you. Those are the people that break my heart, because these are the people that think they're entering heaven because they're doing the religious kind of thing, but they really don't have a relationship with Christ. So that breaks my heart too, because I hate to see somebody get to heaven. Well, they won't get there. That's the whole thing. But they think they're headed that way.
Because what they do is they follow the tradition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a religious spirit, basically. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. Not this is what I want to do. You know, I always look at it. It's not what I do. It's why I do what I do.
Oh my! Today I just did a reflection. It was all about that. You know, good works, right? We do certain things and God sees it, and I get more favor and blessed. And what that does is create more of a division. And we wind up comparing ourselves to other people, that I deserve more favor. I donated. And I always have a problem, and this is like sometimes with donations. Why do you donate? If I'm donating because I want God to bless me or bless someone or give me more favor, but the intentions are not pure, then don't do it. It has to be pure. You have to want to be more like Christ, right? We're all called to be holy. So I agree. That is a good point, how you do need, there are people in the pews. So what about, I mean, do you visit jails? You travel around the world speaking.
I don't do jail so much because of the witness protection program that I was in, and new identity and me being a new person. So basically, if I was to fill out an application to visit a jail, they would ask, have you ever been in prison? If I say yes, and they look up my name, my social security, they'll find out that I was never in prison because I have a new slate white clean. I don't have no record anymore. And if I put no, and then I share in jail that I've been in prison, it looks like I'm a liar. So I have a struggle with that. And then the security thing, you never know who you're going to run into there. And it's not for my safety, it was for the safety of everybody else. So I try not to. If they can get me, now there's one time when they brought me in, I didn't have to fill out any application. I left out the witness protection program. I don't think they needed to know that part of my salvation, but I did go in there and speak to them about where I was, what I did, and then how God saved me. So when I could do it that way, I would do it that way. But talking in general with people, you know, what I try to, you know, back in the days, how you explaining that people feel that they need to do this, they need to do that, they need to do this to find favor, to climb up the ladder, find favor with God. That would be our old life. You know, that would be my old life. I needed to do this kind of crime. I needed to mess this guy up, you know, to find favor within the mob kind of thing, so I could climb up the ladder a little bit more, a little bit more. Or if it's a job, career, you know, I need to do this, I need to do that. But God is not looking at it like that. The thing is, he's examining our heart, not our work. But I say this here, God says that we are saved unto good works. So I don't do it to get saved. I do it because I am saved. And that's the difference, you know? So it's God working through me. When people say you need to take credit, I said I can't. Galatians 2:20 is the greatest verse that really touched my life. Galatians 2:20 goes like this here. Paul is saying, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live, I live in the flesh. I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. If God could love me that much, well, I was his enemy, and give me a new life, who am I not to give him my life?
Wow.
And that's just what it is. So for me, it wasn't a commitment, it was a surrender. I made a lot of commitments to judges, to family members, to wise guys. Didn't keep many of them. Well, God was telling me, I don't want a commitment. I want you to surrender. I want you to surrender your life to me. You see, the exchange at the cross. People look at the cross and they think it's an exchange. It's not just a transformation, it's exchange. God says, I'm going to take your life and I'm going to give you my life. Once we accept the sacrifice that he made on the cross.
I love it. Well, I hope people that are watching this, because you're right, it's surrender. When I talk about that too, to really say a surrender, I mean, that's a lot to give. You know, especially with my pride, I got to give, I got to surrender. Because like you said, a commitment, you're not supposed to break it, but people do, unfortunately. But when you truly say, I surrender, I cannot handle this anymore, it's too difficult, whatever, and you surrender it over, you feel something. And I talk about that late at night when everyone wakes up at 2, 3 in the morning, which whether you want to admit it or not, and we're stress-filled with anxiety, you know what I say? I cannot handle, I surrender it over to you, Lord. Those voices that come of the enemy, of the insecurities that we cannot, the struggle, the doubt, how are you going to make it? We all struggle the same. But when you commit, and even beyond that, like you said, surrender, life changes. But the thing that we do have to emphasize before we wrap up is this is something you do every day. This is a lifestyle. This is not a Sunday thing. This is not a once in a while thing. This is like, I go to the gym every day. Every day you need to commit, surrender, build a relationship with every single day. Because that one day when you don't, that seed plants, that little doubt, fear, the enemy's voice, and it just gets more difficult. You need to commit to Christ, surrender your life to Christ every single day. So now one last question. What's the relationship like with your daughter? Are you communicating with her?
I got to meet my daughter when she was, I think, about 16 years old after all this time, because I went into the witness protection program, and the family, her family, the mother and family that she was, you know, living with, didn't agree with the lifestyle that I choose to give up my friends and cooperate with the government. So I was taboo in that family. So my daughter, my wife today found my daughter on Facebook, and I said, don't say nothing that you're married to me. I said, just tell her that your father's okay. That's all I wanted her to know, that I'm okay. And through that, there we end up getting a connection. It's not where I would like it to be, for sure. There's some sort of abandonment issues that my daughter has. You left me. So if I try to talk to her and give her some advice, she's going to be 27 next month. I think 28 next month. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And she'll say, well, where were you all these other years? Who are you to give me this kind of help now or advice now? So it's a little rocky right now, but God's working, man. God's working. I never give up. I keep praying for her. I let her know that I love her. We don't talk as much. We'll text back and forth a little bit, and we talk maybe every couple of weeks. But there's a relationship there. Not the exact one that I would like to see. When I first came out of prison and going to be brought into witness protection program, I had a picture of my little girl running into my arms and me holding her and hugging her and loving her. And that just didn't happen, but hopefully it'll happen later on. So
wow. I hope so. Listen, my brother, I will pray for you. And just last thing, are you afraid? I mean, you're telling your story. I mean, there's got to be people there, whether they're family members or friends, or that because of you working with the government that are either in prison or, I mean, are you afraid that people are going to come after you now that you're telling your story to the world?
Well, I think they have a lot more to worry about than me, because there's probably people around them right now that are doing that kind of stuff that I did years back. But anyway, I can't let fear intimidate me. Fear comes from the devil. This type of fear anyway comes from the devil. And I think fear could stop you from moving forward what God's called you to do. I look at it this way. This is how I get, I guess, peace within myself is, if they kill me, what happens? I go to be with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't kill me, I stay down here and I keep doing what God has asked me to do. But I can't let fear interrupt what God is calling me to do. I have to obey God and trust Him. How can I tell you or anybody in your audience, you need to trust God and surrender your life to Him, but I'm going to hold back some of the stuff on me. So I just do what I need to do, and I leave the results up to God.
I agree. And exactly. And if we're willing to carry the cross, but oh, wait, it's too heavy now, I want to give it up. If I'm willing to carry the cross, that means I got to carry the cross all the way. And yeah, whatever comes along with that. And I know that too by talking and preaching. And I tell my wife all the time, listen, I'm ready for it. Whatever comes my way, I'm not going to stop. This is what I was called to do. And like you said, I would be more of a hypocrite, if anything, if I was to say it, but not truly believe it and then say, well, it's getting too difficult. Let me, I'm going to just dabble in this. How can we get more information?
You could go to Amazon.com and look up The Witness, H. Scott Hunt, Robert Borelli, and you can purchase it there, or you can go to my website, robertborelli.com, and make any donation. For any donation, I'll send you a book. Just request, I want a book. When you put the donation, give me your address where I can mail the book. I will sign the book and mail it to you personally. So that's the two ways you can get the book.
That's amazing. Well, I will definitely be making a donation. I love autographed books, and I look forward, like we said, to seeing each other at NRB in a couple of weeks in Texas.
Well, God bless you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through your words and actions. God bless you. It's been a pleasure.